Well, absolutely consolidatory for the markets right now. So the Nifty is at 10,760 and we have the mid-cap index, which is marginally underperforming. So down around 0.2% currently for the mid-cap index. Advanced decline ratio quite even keel. So currently stands at around 1:1. But we have Manisha joining in to tell us what she's tracking from the commodity and the currency space. Manisha, over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Ekta. Well, after putting in the best week in 2 years and gaining by nearly 10%, the crude oil prices in this week seem to be consolidating. But there's enough and plenty to tell you that we might see some more support coming in from the fact that the global equity markets have continued to hold firm. The US dollar is slightly on the softer side. And it is about the China stimulus measures that we have seen come in. They, of course, have cut the reserve requirement ratio for the 4th time in last 1 year. And, of course, add to that the fact that the US and China talks seem to be going forward in a more positive, optimistic manner. That announcement would come in today. And ahead of that, of course, there's a bit of a choppiness at as the markets, or volumes rather, are sidelined, not just for crude, but other industrial metals and commodities as well. From here on, especially with the OPEC now cutting output and Saudi Arabia taking much more, impetus on itself on how much would they want to cut, which is larger than what they had agreed in that 1.2 million barrels per day. The markets are anticipating that we would see some more support because of that as well. Vandana Hari of Vanda Insights now joins us with her take on all of that. Vandana, hi, morning. Good to have you. How are you reading the crude oil prices strength until what we have done for Jan 2019 until time?
Good morning, Manisha, and thanks for having me back on your show. I think the overall theme that we saw towards the end of 2018, which was crude pretty much moving in lockstep with the equity markets in the US as well as, I would say, generally all over the world, that theme very much continues. Over the past few days, there has been some cheer, some optimism, shall we say, in the financial markets over a couple of developments. So one is, of course, the ongoing China-US trade talks that you just alluded to. Things are looking up. There have been some very positive comments from both sides. And just as a feeling that both the US and China very much need a breakthrough. So that is fueling some of the optimism. And the other, of course, has been a slightly dovish stance taken by the Fed chairman and in his remarks last Friday. So overall, positive sentiment. Again, I think most of it has been factored in, which is why you see a bit of a lull and sideways move in crude today, as in equities as well.
Sure. So, Vandana, from 42.5 on the Christmas Eve to almost 48, 49 is what we saw in the New York session yesterday. It has been a great, $7 to $8 of a jump up coming in for the U.S. crude oil prices. Would you say that we will stay around these levels for much part of this month, or are you expecting a correction?
So in order to try and take a view on what prices are likely to do in the next few days and next few weeks, I think one will need to keep a very close eye on how the U.S.-China trade talks pan out. I think the market today will especially be looking for the official comments, because what we heard yesterday was just noise, basically. That both sides saying they were satisfied and so on. But officially, what do they say? And when is the next round of talks scheduled? Because clearly, again, I think we would be deceiving ourselves to think that this is the end of it. I think this is just the start. So that will be key to watch. And the other would be OPEC, non-OPEC cuts. As you just again mentioned, the Saudis seem quite determined to make it work. However, I think it will probably take a few weeks for the impact of those to be felt in the physical markets.
Oh, yes.
Thanks very much, Vandana. Short conversation today. Appreciate you coming on. Manisha, thank you very much for joining in as well. Well, we have some opinion coming in on what we heard from the Supreme Court with regards to the CBI chief being reinstated, of course, but with limited authority so far before a selection committee clears the selection and decides what to do, really. Majid Memon is joining us right now, a senior advocate. We'll also have Gopal Jain, again, senior counsel, join us with some perspective. Mr. Memon, thank you for your time. How would you look at what the Supreme Court is doing? Do you see this as a setback to the government? Mr. Memon, can you hear me, sir? I think we lost the line. Gopal Jain is with us, senior advocate. Mr. Jain, thank you for your time. How do you see this order, sir? Do you see this as a prima facie a setback for the government?
No, I think you have to look at it in context. The court has put the gentleman back, saying the selection committee will decide. So we haven't yet had the opportunity of the order. So they must have laid down the principle that it is for the committee to take the call, or the committee has the decision-making power. So since the committee had not considered this, they probably said we restore him without taking major decisions, and committee to take the final decision if they have the power under the orders of the court. So I think it's not a final outcome, and we have to read the order to see what was the reason which weighed with the court. But this obviously seems to be what it appears to be so.
Yeah. No. So in a way, not in a way. It seems the Supreme Court is saying that the way he was sent away was not correct. I mean, procedurally was not correct. It's for the selection committee to decide what has to be done. So they've put him back with, of course, limited authorities at this point.
Yes. So since we are only commenting on your story without seeing the order,
right,
what appears to be the case is this, that the powers of decision-making are with the committee. They will take a call, and like we have in courts, an interim arrangement. In the interim period, he can go back, but like you said, without taking major decisions or policy decisions, whatever expression the court is used.
What would constitute as major policy decisions, Mr. Jain, in your assessment?
No, there are day-to-day affairs, and there are, let us say, policy matters, new matters, important matters. So you have, if I may use the word, interim. In the interim, you're continuing. So it's not that you're confirmed in that position. So you would broadly continue what is happening. You would not do something which partakes the character of policy or something new. So it's like every institution has to have a head to ensure that it runs smoothly, like a day-to-day affairs, things which are already there.
Sure.
And I think these expressions are used fairly often on policy matters or in company court matters, etc. So people broadly know the lay of the land. What is routine, what is policy, what is major, significant, will all be part of the institutional framework in any case.
Okay. Mr. Jain, if I can request you to stay with us. Mr. Majid Memon, senior advocate, is also joining us right now. Mr. Memon, we had you back earlier. We lost the line, I think. But your first thoughts, prima facie, what would you make of what the Supreme Court has done, the order?
You see, that midnight operation at the behest of the Prime Minister by the central government, by asking Verma to leave his position, go on leave, has been reversed by the highest court of land, which in fact is a very big slap on the face of the government. Because the selection committee plays a very important constitutional position as far as the functioning of the CBI is concerned, their transfers, their appointments, their way of working. And the central government, by that act of high-handedness at midnight, was in total defiance to that constitutional position. And therefore, it was expected that Supreme Court would set it right. And unfortunately, now that the time is running very short, Verma has hardly a few days. Otherwise, select committee could have been convened, and they could have decided that, well, Alok Verma would have been restored with all the powers that the director of CBI enjoys. But it is very sad that there are very few days left before his superannuation.
So that is my point, Mr. Memon. If this was all there was to it, why the delay in the order, right? I mean, it comes at a point where, as you said, he's only got not got long to serve. I mean, he's retiring. So then,
see, you can't find fault with Supreme Court as far as delay is concerned, because they have their own priorities, they have their own workload, and therefore it cannot be attributed to Supreme Court that holding of this order back for some time was deliberate. It has happened in due course, and luckily it has happened before his date of superannuation, so that his honor is restored and his prestige is upheld by the highest court. And I'm sure that Mr. Verma must be a happy man. No doubt that he has been prevented from taking major decisions till the select committee, meets again. But then, in any case, this is a major blow to the arbitrariness on the part of the current central government.
So, sir, you would then look at it in summation as more than just a procedural decision, based on what you said in your last comment, that it would be a setback for the government, a blow to the government in terms of the kind of decision that they made?
Well, definitely. I don't know what would be the reaction from the law minister and the Prime Minister and others, because you see, those who form the part of the select committee, because the leader of opposition also is an integral part thereof, and therefore the government could not have taken any decision so arbitrarily and unilaterally, which they did to protect somebody and to punish someone. And now that has been exposed. And Mr. Verma, who appears to be an honest officer, I'm happy that his honor is restored, and then he can work as the director and say that, well, he would retire as the sitting director of the CBI.
Mr. Memon, this point about major policy decisions, although as you're saying he's retiring soon, but you know, many would link this to what we've seen in the Rafale issue. Now, of course, all speculation, but what investigating is essentially within the regular day-to-day ambit of what the CBI may do, depending on complaints received. So, I mean, what would you say is major policy decisions, and it's a matter on which the Supreme Court has already weighed in? Your sense?
No, see, the people of this country would not now know. Now, the message is clear from the highest court of the land, that how is this government trying to protect the wrongdoers and punish the person who speaks out against the wrongdoers. Now, this message has gone very clearly to the people of this country, and definitely it would be very instrumental and effective in the elections that are going to take place now. So the battle is already won by the opposition, and BJP leaders will have to now react. Let us see how do they try to justify this order.
Okay. So, Mr. Memon, in your thought, do you think that this would set a strong enough precedent for such a decision to not be taken by any sort of government going forward?
Now, let us first. I would want to know what BJP has to say, what the NDA government has to say, and how are they going to face or counter this finding that the midnight operation of asking him to proceed on leave has been held to be illegal and unconstitutional. And what is their explanation for that? I am awaiting their response.
Mr. Memon, thank you very much for your time, sir. Good speaking with you. And Mr. Gopal Jain, if you're there, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective as well.